took it all and took it for granted. If you're still falling out of love, maybe it's 'cause it's not enough.
I can't see anything. I can't see anything. There we go. Oh my God! There we go. There we go.
So why are you always sleeping? I remember when you said you're afraid of what's ahead. What happened to ride or die?
I can't see anything.
You just start crying. How are you acting so surprised? Haven't you seen?
What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video, coming at you with seriously still one of the most broken things in Warframe. Hey, this ain't clickbait. I mean, if it got you here, well, whatever. It's a very broken interaction, and I hope it's intentional, but that's hella copium. This is Zata's Whisper with the Elemental Ward Synergy. Now, I know I use the term synergy lightly here, but we all know it's not one, but a busted, strong, buggy interaction. So I took this interaction to a level 9,999 disruption. As you saw, I was one-tapping these Demolists fairly easy. Now, I did a video talking about this in my top overpowered things in Warframe. If you want to see the rest of the things in that video, go check it out. But I will let past Nightmare Frame explain how this specific interaction works, because, you know, I'm lazy repeating myself.
CHROMA's Elemental Ward Damage Reflection and Zata's Whisper's Bullet Attractor interaction, allowing you to deal insane amounts of damage. When using this, you can't have Vex armor along with Zata's Whisper, so you have to replace his third ability. TLDR, Bullet Attractors and Reflected Damage share the same principles. Damage done by the Bullet Attractor will be amplified by the Damage Reflection multiplier of Elemental Ward, and this damage multiplier ends up being a final weapon damage multiplier, similar to Eclipse, but with no lighting issue. Let me explain this a bit. The Cold Elemental Ward has two buffs, armor and damage reflection. The damage reflection has a multiplier and status chance. This multiplier only applies to the projectile weapon damage reflected from enemies' attacks, and the redirected damage is based off of your element on the ward, so always cold. Now for the Bullet Attractor, and the one that we'll be using is Zata's Whisper. Bullet attractors like Mag's Bubble and Zata's Whisper have similar effects. When you shoot a projectile, it will create a bubble and the projectile will orbit around the enemy. However, hit scan bullets do not orbit the enemy. The shots will mark an area and force all of the remaining shots to always be redirected to that area that was shot first, no matter where you shoot into the bubble afterwards. For example, if you land a headshot first, the whole bullet attractor bubble is then turned into a huge headshot marker. Now this is where it gets a bit crazy. The weapon must be hit scan, otherwise the damage is just going to be diminished, and the elemental ward will turn all the damage into cold damage and nothing you can do about it. So we'll build on that and we'll go with full raw base damage, crits, and the cold elemental damage multiplier, and have fun one-shotting everything in sight. And yes, you can subsume Elemental Ward onto Zaku. It will do the same thing. But I'm using CHROMA here because he looks better than Zaku. And mostly because I want people to get triggered that I replace Vex armor with Zata's Whisper, even though I explained why. People will skip the video and complain in the comment section, which is where I get my content. Alright, let's take a look at the build. In the aura, I got Growing Power for that 25% increase in power strength when you proc a status effect, which is going to be most of the time. Power Drifts in the Exilus because, well, I'm still using prime sure-footed, but for that additional 15% power strength, why not? So with power drift, growing power, transient fortitude, blind rage, and umbral intensify is where I'm going to get all my power strength from. So it's going to be 313 at base, and of course when you add growing power, it's going to be 338. Math! Vigor swap for that swap speed, mainly to switch between my primer and my primary weapon. My primer is pretty much going to be my utility weapon where I proc status effects for that additional bonus in damage. Now here you can either go with Umbral Vitality if you just want a little boost in power strength and you don't mind the lower duration of Elemental Ward, which I had going for me during the run, and I found it horrible. So I would totally suggest running Continuity, because for one, you're not going to be taking a lot of damage, because we'll be using the Vazarin Focus School with its Protective Sling, Protective Dash, because Void Dash is better. When you Void Dash into yourself, you will gain 5 seconds of invulnerability. Now you may be wondering, why are you using this with Rolling Guard? Well, for one, right, it's better to engage with Rolling Guard, disengage with Rolling Guard, rather than going into your Warframe, doing that, and then running away. It's better to have the additional survivability, especially if you're doing high-level missions. I just hope you understand that CHROMA isn't the one that's overpowered, right? It's the interaction, because, you know, people say, oh, it's because CHROMA is so... No. It's just the interaction between Elemental Ward and Xanta's Whisper. Without that, CHROMA is just, you know, your go-to credit farmer for Profit Taker. That's about it. Now, the weapon has to be hit scan. So if you're saying, oh, what if I want to use my Daikyu? No. Hit scan. Meaning, if you press button, you'll get an instant registration of your damage. See, that's hit scan. That's projectile. See, there's travel time with your shots. You can literally, visibly see your shots. Okay, so your choices can be whatever, your Tenora, your Tiburon, your Synapse, Ignis Wraith, Sibaris, friggin' Rubico, Soma Prime. It doesn't matter as long as it's hit scan. These weapons are not the main source of damage, it's just the mods and the interaction. So think of them like stat sticks. And the build is pretty straightforward. We got our faction mod, multi-shot, crit chance, crit damage, more crit chance, because why not? Fire rate and punch through, and only the cold elemental mod, since we're going to be converting our damage into cold anyway. Galvanized aptitude for even more base damage, and because we're going to be priming our enemies before taking them down. Primary deadhead. Remember what I said, when you proc a void bubble when landing a headshot, the entire void bubble turns into a headshot marker. So deadhead is a great damage multiplier, and Xanta's Whisper will scale off of that as well. So when you're engaging a target and you want to prime them, make sure you hit a headshot first, and then everything within that void bubble is a headshot. Headshot, headshot. That's regular headshot, but prime, headshot, prime, headshot. Now for my utility secondary, my primer, I would suggest using anything that has non-AoE. For my secondary weapon here, I'm using the compressor. I did use the epitaph in the video, but that required me to do headshots with my primary first. This way, you can just go in and use your compressor on the enemy, get a headshot, get some elemental procs, and then switch to your main DPS weapon. The great thing about compressor is that it has innate viral, so you can mod it with corrosive and other elements. In this case, this is how I've modded it. Cold is just for the slow status effect, because that is one of the main ways to slow down the demolists. And Carnage just for the additional status chance. Multi-shot, fire rate, status chance, and reflex draw for the holster speed, because we can swap between our weapons fairly easy. And dexterity is there again for the swap speed. However, you can also use the Vassalok as your initial void bubble proc, because you're going to be using the Vassalok as well for armor strip. See, we got a void proc. And melees, right, they're also hit scan, even if they are gunblades. The Vassalok is modded for attack speed, wind-up speed, and dispatch overdrive for some more movement speed and utility, and cold for the, you know, additional cold procs, slow down enemies, and of course, shattering impact. So shattering impact will strip base armor. So 6 base armor whenever you deal impact damage. Not an impact proc. So all of this damage, this total damage, will have impact within it, because impact is part of the IPS pool. And since the Vassalok deals 9 pellets per shot, we're gonna strip enemies fairly quickly. There you go. And now onto my Sentinel, which is going to be my Jin, if it shows up here. Okay, it's not showing up. Regardless, we got Fatal Attraction, and we also need to run Assault Mode because we're going to have the Jin attack the Demolist. I'll show you why. Reawaken is going to be the only thing that's going to keep this thing available within the mission as long as possible. And here I'm using the Verglas as its weapon. It's got multi-shot, bunch of fire rates, and status chance, and more status chance, and of course the Vigilante mods, basically increasing my chance to hit an additional crit tier. And that's the build. Fairly simple, very straightforward. You just have to learn the interaction. If you want more damage, make sure you get a headshot first so that void bubble turns into a huge headshot marker. Very simple and clean. Alright folks, that has been it from this video. Hopefully you enjoyed and learned something from it. And if you did, feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, a peace.